Don't you want it? 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 You lose your little mind. 5 dead lives.
So, welcome to the Deadlights podcast, Mini. I'm your host, Sam Johnston.
And I'm Mini Leslie,
Little
bringing
Mini
you
Leslie.
your mini dose of mini horror.
Tiny little mini horror.
Little minis.
Because you never can get enough when you round us, right?
Absolutely not, and I can't get enough of these.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sponsor.
I will say one thing that I always liked about movies is getting candy while you eat them. Any movie.
Oh my
Any
god.
horror movies.
I didn't like popcorn growing up, so I would get a thing of candy to myself. Because it was either or. You got candy, or you got popcorn.
Candy every day.
But now, we're rich enough to be able to afford anything we want. You want a pretzel too? You want a hot dog? You want a pizza?
Whoa! Nachos?
Nachos?
Screw it.
I would get nachos, popcorn, and candy.
Yeah, you're...
And a drink.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the full movie experience right there.
I used to
You're an
work.
adult. You can do what you want.
I used to work at a movie theater too, so
Oh,
I was able to get perks.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is
But,
nice.
candy.
Well, I thought that what we could do
Mhm.
is talk about what some people refer to as the Big Three.
The big three? What are the big three?
The Big Three horror movies. I'm referring to Halloween,
Halloween,
Friday the 13th,
Friday the 13th,
and A Nightmare on Elm Street.
and Nightmare on
Typically referred to as the big slasher films of the genre, kind of kickstarting that genre. And I think that they're like those movies take a lot of inspiration from horror movies that have come before them, and also have inspired, obviously, a lot of movies that have come after it.
I definitely do think of those three when I think of slasher horror.
I mean, look at our shirts, right? Like, you know,
Little Teeth Bay.
you see them, you know exactly what to do, which
Yeah.
is run away.
I mean,
Run.
some people are not that smart.
That is
Sam.
true. That is true, which we've seen in upwards of 10 installments of each of these film franchises.
Mhm.
So I thought we could do a little mini-sode on each of them, because I think they each deserve their own
Perfect.
little discussion. And let's start with the first one of the three to come out, which is Halloween from 1978 with our man Michael Myers.
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers. I mean, iconic, obviously. The mask is huge. I'm just curious, when you think of Halloween or Michael Myers in general, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
Well, to be honest, it wasn't until I started the 31 Days of Horror, watching them with you, that I could be able to kind of differentiate between the two. I still confuse the two.
Which are?
What we're wearing.
What we're wearing.
Michael Myers
Sure.
and the other guy.
And they're, I mean,
Jason.
Jason, yeah, I mean, they are
That's
similar.
Jason, right? With the hockey
Yes.
mask.
Yes, and you're
Okay.
wearing Michael.
Michael.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, like, the hair, that kind of, like, white face is
Mhm.
definitely what I think about. And then for Michael, it's the
I mean,
hockey mask.
Jason,
Jason,
Michael.
Michael.
Yes. We're talking about Michael.
Michael.
We're talking about Michael right
Okay.
now.
Michael.
All we're talking about is Michael right now.
Yes. So what I think about is he's wearing that industrial blue kind of suit.
Mhm.
Always a knife, and then the little fur coming out of his head, his like hair.
Yeah, it was originally, that mask was William Shatner, like Captain Kirk from Star Trek. That's his face in a mask, and then they just spray painted it white.
Yikes!
Yeah. That's
he's
how
a
they made
lot
it.
more handsome than that.
Yeah, not a great interpretation of the mask.
Do you see them doing that to the mask?
No.
Or is this behind the scenes?
This is behind the scenes. How they came
Oh.
up with it.
Okay.
hmm
Damn.
Yeah. And it is just like that. They were able to make it just a plain face. Literally just a white, plain... You wouldn't know that that's Captain Kirk.
No.
But it's enough of just like a regular featured face that
Very
it's just void of
basic,
everything. Yeah.
Without it being like a hockey mask
Mhm.
or I don't know, very doll-like kind of thing.
It's just almost with it being such a basic human face, it almost dehumanizes him more.
Yeah, because you can't see the features.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing, like, very gruesome things to these teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know if he's taking pleasure from it or, you know, he's, like, angry. Yeah, you have no idea. But this mask doesn't come in until when?
Oh, it's in the first one.
Oh, it's in the first one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the Jason mask that takes a couple movies to come into.
Right.
But yeah, this is immediately in, he has this one.
They're around the same time period.
Jason was 2 years later.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So they're, yeah.
But Jason was definitely trying to capitalize on the success that Halloween had.
Right.
They knew that this kind of genre of masked killer stalking teens was huge, and they wanted to cash in on it.
Yeah.
So, from what I've kind of was doing research, John Carpenter, the director of Halloween,
What a great name.
Yeah.
Carpenter,
killing it. He absolutely does kill. I mean, we watched the Thing already, which was one of his movies.
Great. That was great.
And so he's talked about how Michael Myers is kind of like almost like a force of nature, where it's like he's less human and more of just like something that is moving without even thinking. You
can totally see that because there's scenes where he is here and then all of a sudden he's like here, and you kind of sense that there's something supernatural without it being too obvious or
and I think that's what he was kind of playing with for sure with Michael Myers, was starting it off as a human. You know, obviously we can see that there is a human in there, but then because everything is so stripped down to like, we don't even know what this person's motives are, and then add on top of it, he somehow has like superhuman strength at some points, throwing people through out of windows, walking through doors himself, you know? Like,
that's hilarious.
Exactly. Like, he is more than human, which makes him less human almost, because
he's a very tall and stocky guy.
And when you see that just slowly coming toward, it's like a shark. Just like all they're focused on is food and moving. They have to move or else they die. And they have to move towards food. And they attack just for that.
What a way to live. I wouldn't want to be moving always.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of... having to move always makes you have to have a goal in mind all the time. So
is that why sharks? I don't know. I presume that they're angry all the time. Is that they're angry because they're always moving?
I'm so pissed I gotta move. Fuck this.
Like, even when they're asleep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even when they're asleep.
Yeah.
Well, so do you think Michael Myers has motives? Or is he just more... Does he have pleasures? Does he have desires? Does he have likes? Does he like doing this? Or is this just something that he does because he has to? Like a shark.
Yeah. Again, I'm thinking... So, we saw the first Friday... No, we saw both of the first ones, right? We saw... Oh, gosh.
Halloween.
It's been a while. Right? I would say that he has less of a motive than any of the other slasher serial killers. I think to me it is a true, it like captures what in that time or that in the 70s when there was the word coin, like serial killers being coined, is, you know, sometimes we didn't know what the motive were for them, and like it would take sometimes months or or years if they didn't capture them, to really know why, someone is killing people. Especially, yeah, like I want to say like a lot of teens were being killed.
Well,
Lots
and I
of
think
families
yeah,
too being broken
Mhm.
in, and no one knew why, just except for this person just did it.
And that too, I think you're right. Like in the 70s, when the term serial killer was being coined, people always wanted to know why.
Yeah.
Why is this person doing this?
They need
Why?
to know the motive so then they can understand.
Yes, and hopefully wrap their mind around things that you can't wrap your mind around.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is I think people started to realize that holy shit, some of these people actually don't have motives, like as far as like what we would think of that,
Or
or like a reason to kill. It's just a need almost, which is scarier.
Yeah.
Like there is no reason that you're doing this. It's just because you have to.
This is the only thing that helps them live,
which I think
provides happiness.
That's way harder for people to understand, especially in the 70s, and way harder for people to accept.
Yes.
How can you accept that there's no reason?
It's a really hard concept. There's a lot of these, shootings that happen, and it's because sometimes these kids just had a gun and they wanted to see how it felt like to shoot people. And you don't have to come from, and even if you do come from a background of childhood trauma and sexual abuse and whatever else, there are other people too that have probably gone to similar situations, but doesn't mean that they're gonna become a serial killer. So it just all boils down to who the person is, I think, and just their desires.
Well, and also there's the flip side of that too. It's like we've seen real serial killers in real life that have had good upbringings and very nice homes that they've come from, but still they go towards this path of murder and violence. And so this question of why, like what is the motive, becomes super jumbled up and super confusing and almost unanswerable. And I think Michael Myers is a perfect encapsulation of evil force or a violent act with no motive and nothing behind it.
Exists.
It just exists. It's just evil.
Yeah.
That's why it's pure evil, because it's only bad. And that's pretty much what he is. Like even in the first one, we get the beginning of the movie is Michael Myers as a child, but we don't see what that kid went through, why he was the way he was, if he had a bad upbringing, if he was bullied. We don't see any of that. We jump into killing, this child killing, and then that child becomes an adult and is still killing. So there really is no explanation. The later movies start to try to explain, but that's why those later movies aren't as good, because
they're trying to humanize him.
They're trying to make him more human and explain more, which that is against the point of the character, really.
And I think, isn't that what we want to do? Like, in general, like, we are trying to find what the motive for these killings, and we try to look in their background to see what might have happened in their childhood, and we're trying to nitpick and be like, oh, well, this moment, this one bully in 7th grade, that could have been it. And it's like, well, it could have been.
Because that, once we can explain it, that makes it less scary.
Yeah. We're trying to label everything, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and actually explaining Michael Myers' motives and why he is the way he is makes him less scary.
Yeah. I think we don't need to know why. It just like there's good people in this planet, there's going to be bad people. Nobody needs to know why this person is a good person. Yeah. But we need to know why they're a bad person.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's about us, trying to rationalize the things that we can't rationalize.
What's one of the reasonings as to why he's killing?
I mean, something, I don't know, the later movies get really weird where there's like a Michael Myers cult and like...
he goes to space.
That's Jason.
God damn it!
That's the hockey mask.
Ah.
Yeah. No, Michael never goes to space, luckily.
I hope he stays here.
He stays here, but there's like... They try to explain, like, there's a cult, and, like, he's a killer for a cult, which doesn't make any sense because he's been in an institution his whole life. Again, that's really not the point of the character. The point of the character is just to be a force.
Right.
That just causes destruction.
I would have maybe liked for the cult to then be like a copycat type of thing where they start admiring him and create this group of people that love him and need to kill the way that he kills, you know? That may be what it might have been a better story as to him being the killer for a cult.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Well, and Danny McBride, who wrote the new Halloween that came out in 2018, he talked about those later Halloween movies where they try to start explaining his backstory and his motives. And he was like, we wanted to get rid of all that because we wanted to return to the original form of what actually makes him scary. And that is the unknown, the not knowing, and the trying to figure it out, but there's actually nothing there to figure out except that this person has to do it.
He just has to do it.
Yeah.
Do you think they like got driven to write those scripts because of the whole nostalgic kind of scene and how these like younger generations might know who he is just because they're everywhere, but they need more of a backstory for them?
I think that it's just like, where do you really go when you're writing stories except like back, you know, like how do you make this character more interesting? You know, you try to explain where he came from, and that's when things just get convoluted. What I will say is where John Carpenter got the original inspiration for the Michael Myers character, apparently when he was in college, he went on a field trip to a mental institution. I'm not sure what he was studying in college, but they went to...
Carpentry?
He was making
I need to stop laughing like Peter Griffin.
Carpenter. They, I guess, went to the wing of the most mentally ill and dangerous patients, and the patient that disturbed him the most was a 12 or 13-year-old boy who was in there and just stared at him with like a evil, pure, as he called it, pure evil stare, and it terrified him that this little kid was in the most severe and dangerous wing of this mental institution. And so that's just the basic. Again, he didn't know what that boy did. It's almost like his own mind was doing enough work for him to be like, what could have this little kid have done to end up here?
Damn.
And that was the inspiration for, or the jump off point for, Michael Myers.
I do hope that 12-year-old got better.
Me too.
But also that is a really cool story. To just, because I've been there before. I've looked at somebody and I'm like, oh, you look like this type of person, and I can write a whole character for you. You're
scary, and it's almost scarier because I don't know why you're scary. You scary.
You scary.
You're scary. Do you think that, I mean, obviously Michael Myers is the big monster of the movie, but it is called Halloween, and it takes place on Halloween, and does the idea of it being on Halloween add anything for you, or do you even think about the fact that it's on that holiday when you think about Halloween, or do you just think about Michael Myers?
I think that there is an interesting connection because you don't know, like, everybody can hide behind a mask, and you don't know who's who anymore, and everybody has a different disguise, and everybody's pretending to be somebody else. So it's scary in that sense.
Yeah.
That there could be multiple people that you just don't know.
And it's interesting because you're right. Like, he is hiding his face, but he's not really hiding his desires. He's doing exactly what he wants to do and moving through this world unapologetically, essentially, just killing, though he is hiding his face. So it's like, who is his true identity?
We watched the second one.
Yes, we watched the second one.
Yeah, not the first one, because there was a person in Halloween that dressed up like him. And
Yes. Because it takes place on the same night. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
guy.
thought, yeah, he's dead. That kid was dead.
Like, it blows up. He gets hit by a car and then he blows up.
That's so funny. That's true. I forgot about that.
That poor guy.
Oh, man. Then the teenager, like, their friends was like, oh my god, you didn't come home.
Yeah. No,
and
bad.
And the cop that freaking...
A cop killed a kid.
Yeah. Ran his car in and he was like, oh, haha, just wait for him to come home.
I'm sure he's fine.
He's fine.
That was definitely
He's
Michael
a teenager.
Myers.
He wasn't he in a party? But yeah. Do you think it makes him scarier?
Wearing the mask or
No, just the story being taken place
on Halloween.
On Halloween.
I mean, I think it does. I completely agree with you in the fact that it lends to the idea that anyone can hide themselves under a mask and anyone can be anyone that they want, essentially, on Halloween.
Yeah.
And so he's also being what he wants on Halloween. He's escaped from the mental institution and he wants to kill. And so he is doing exactly what he wants, like everyone else, and being the person that he wants to be, while everyone else is also playing that fantasy around them. And also, I think, too, like these serial killers, they try to repeat kills. You know, they have that, like, MO of, like, repeating a ritual of the same kills. And obviously Michael Myers has a thing for teenage girls, that he continuously wants to kill teenage girls. And it's almost like his ritual. And he's playing out that fantasy on a night that's all about everyone playing out their fantasies. So it makes sense. I think it completely makes sense.
And serial killers progress. So they, like, get these, like, fantasies and then they try something and then maybe their first victim, like, escapes and they're like, oh shoot, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So then they add another element and another element until they, like, find a perfect, like, they perfected their kill.
They're
evolving
to the killer that they want to be.
Yes.
Yeah. And these serial killers that have, like, these high body counts, you're right, you see that progression and they're learning and they're changing slightly.
Because sometimes, like, they start getting really cocky because you're murdering someone, you're taking somebody's life. And to them, that's a really good feeling. So then they start taking little tokens or from the body and they start mutilating them because you know how to kill them faster and you're trying to experiment and see, like, how much further can I take this? How much satisfaction can I get?
Yeah. Well, and also the token thing too is about reliving the kill. Is like, because you're taking a souvenir from it to then think back on it and remember it.
Yep.
Again, repeating the ritual, living in the fantasy.
Also having this, like, thing of, like, oh, they would always be with me kind of thing.
Now, Michael Myers never does that.
No. And he doesn't go as far as to even mutilating. Like,
not really.
Even though it seems like he has a problem with women, especially younger women, he never shows it. You know, it's really hard to explain because he is showing it because he's murdering them.
Right.
But at least he's not, you know,
he's not being
he's
not dehumanizing them.
Yeah. But there's another word for it.
And he also
when you cut the body parts.
Yeah, like,
and show frustration that you, like.
Yeah, there's no, like, overkill. It's just about I'm killing you, and once you're dead, you're dead. I'm not doing anything.
You're dead.
That.
I'm gonna move on to the next person.
You're right. Yeah. There's no, like, individual, like, him, like, playing with his victims. There's no almost cat or mouse game. It's just kill.
It's not linger. He's not lingering and doing whatever he wants with these bodies.
It
He's
doesn't
like,
seem like he's actually getting satisfaction, like in the individual moments of them losing, like consciousness and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't take his time. He kills, and he's just killing, and it's almost like that is what is keeping him going. Is just the snuffing of life, and that's it.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how, but as long as it's snuffed.
Yeah.
Which again, I think that kind of lends to him being even more scary because he's not doing it for any sort of like satisfaction. He's just doing it.
You're just doing it.
Just going.
And there's no correlation between people. Like, he doesn't, like, maybe he kills more younger women, but, like, he doesn't have a preference. He's not, like, going after just, like, long-haired, brunettes or whatever. Like, sexy ones.
Yes, right.
It's just, like, an array.
Yeah.
And maybe some people will probably argue that these teens are, like, hyperly sexual, or, like, they're drinking, they're doing drugs, they're going to parties, and this is a reason why they're paying for their sins. But it's not really that. We are all teenagers and humans, and we all did that, and and that's no reason for you to get murdered, even in this, fantastical world.
It's really, you're right. It's like he's not seeking out those types of people. He's just essentially just walking through a suburb, and it's like, I'm going into this house. I'm going into this house now. And I mean, he kills men too because they're in his way, and he's gonna kill them, and they're there, and because that's what he's about. He's just a machine. Again, he's described by John Carpenter as just a force of nature, which a force of nature has zero preference of who they're gonna hit, when they're gonna hit. They just hit whoever's in their path.
He got that from the look. That look just gave him everything he needed without any reason to, like, to write anything else besides just this looming evil.
Which is interesting that they definitely wrote the movie and started producing it before they had the final mask. Like, he didn't write... They wrote the movie before they even knew what he was going to look like. So the fact that they were able to get it to a point of finding this look where he is a human, but he's so plain of a human that it makes it scarier, was perfect.
What do you think of... I mean, you did kind of talk about the later films of being not so great, but do you think that they should just let it be, or continue writing these stories on it?
Like, do I wish that they just like made the first one and then stopped?
Well, you couldn't have helped that, but like, I guess from now, like, with all the movies that they've made now, would you wish for them to just let the story be? Or do you find them to, I don't know, just
I think that it's interesting because the slasher genre then it became about the sequels for sure. And having like 10 installments in these movies was like, that's another big part of these big three. They have so many movies in these series. And that's, I think, because they're trying to recapture what they did in the first one. In all of these, they were a big hit for a reason, and they want to relive that same scare that we first got, and so I think that is ultimately what they're trying to do with all these later movies. Do I wish that they never made them? No, because there are definitely parts in all the movies that are fun and crazy and cool, stupid, but they still add to this mythos of these three characters. The fact that they are so big and they've inspired people so much that there are 10 to 12 movies in each of these. It just is giving credit to these characters and to their power, because people want to go back to the movies so many times to watch them do these things. I think that no, I definitely wish that I'm glad that they made all these movies and all the different crazy, stupid installments that they did, because it's just adding to these characters, and whether it's good or not, it's at least adding to the lore of how big and scary and timeless these monsters can be. Because they're still scary. They're all still scary for sure.
I mean, now for sure they are costumes around Halloween of sexy Freddy Krueger. So,
ooh, I'll be in your dream.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
I'm in your dream.
I'm in your dream. I'm in your wet dream.
But of course, they don't wear the mask of.
No, of course not.
The burn mask.
No. Oh no, gross. That's not a wet dream.
I don't know. It might. I think you've had one or two with actually Freddy.
Yeah, you're probably right. Not a wet dream, but dream maybe. Just a dream. Just a dream. Well, all right, cool. So that's Michael.
Cool. Well, thank you,
Michael Myers for sure.
Educating me.
So now that we've done this one, next week we'll do Jason.
Okay.
And then the week after that we'll do Freddy. We'll talk about these guys.
I'm sure I'm gonna forget.
For sure. I'm gonna keep reminding you.
And I'm not a poser. Okay. I'm learning.
We're all learning.
It's just not the genre that I grew up in.
Yeah, that slasher is pretty much what you've been avoiding.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was like all about it.
So far, it hasn't been bad. Mm-hmm. The earlier ones have been more about the storyline.
Yeah. Well, and I also like talking about it too and teaching.
Yeah.
You. That's part of it for not just you, but whoever's listening and watching. It's all about learning and expanding our horror knowledge. Even if you haven't seen a lot of those movies, these three guys are such in the pop culture that you can still talk about them.
They're
even
homies
if you haven't.
For life.
Horror homies for life.
For life.
We'll get to this guy next week.
Next week. Camp Crystal Lake. But
plug.
Instagram, Color Me Leslie.
And Beep Beep Richie T. Also, the Deadlights Pod.
Deadlights Pod. Oh my gosh.
Follow that shit. Also check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we are recording this at. But until then, let's get mini spooky.